Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm happy to welcome you to this week's episode. Is Saturday, December 2nd, 2023. And I'm here to talk to you about Vedic astrology, its impact, how astrology is affecting the world, and how it's affecting you in your lives. I am using a new computer this week. Please let me know how it looks, how it sounds. I haven't had a chance to fine tune it yet, and I'm looking for your feedback. It sounds a little, my voice sounds a little muffled to me on this, and I'll try to adjust that properly. So, without further delay, I will have some broadcasts coming up with some other astrologers very, very soon. And I'm looking forward to if you would like to tune into those, or if you'd like to be on this particular show, please do let me know. I'd be happy to invite you on, and we can talk about astrology and how you're dealing with different events or forecasts that you're seeing, or different techniques you may be using that I might not be. So let me just go on and first of all, I did want to say something about what is happening in Ireland, because a couple of weeks ago, I saw a negative line going through Ireland, and I was rather surprised. So I think what we're seeing is the latest manifestation of a phenomenon which is happening, which seems to be happening worldwide, and that is we're seeing increasing dissatisfaction with governments and governing bodies. The protests were triggered by an event. I believe it was a murder or an attack, and it did have heavy immigration overtones, but also there are some overtones coming around in that the Irish government wants to monitor hate speech as part of its mission. And the hate speech legislation is rather, I won't say extreme, it's rather unforgiving. So you can be jailed for up to a year if you don't provide a password, that even if it's a conversation between husband and wife. So I find that fascinating. And I had said a few years ago in an interview with Gary O'Toole that I could see increasing censorship happening around the world in terms of online forums and online presentations. And I think that is proven to be true. Now, whether or not I agree with those things or not is a different issue. But that phenomenon, I think you'll see that phenomenon continue to occur over the next few years. And there'll also be some resistance and increasing governmental dissatisfaction. So let's look at the map of the skies right now, see what that says. And I'll be happy to share the screen with you. Also, if you like the programming, please feel free to share it with your friends or with anybody you know who's interested in astrology, and will see we'll see how much we can build up the page. We're up to around 750 subscribers so far, which isn't a big number by any stretch of the imagination. But I would like to grow it bigger. And I will be doing some things to make it more presentable to the listening and viewing audience. Okay? So I've been promising to do that for a long time. This computer is the first step in that process. I hope to get rid of a lot of the background noise here. As you can see, I have a lot of books and CDs and DVDs. So but you don't have to know that. That's not really why you're tuning to see me. So let's see if we can get the chart up on the screen. But like, subscribe, share, comment. They're all welcome, please. So let's see now. Excuse me, sorry about that, folks. So we're going to share the screen now again, or try to share the screen again. And that's how it looks like it took, but let's try 3 times for good luck, right? Yeah. No. Trying to see how much time we have left. Let me stop the share for a second. So let's see now. I'm looking for the timer button so I don't. All right. So this is leaving me at a little bit of a disadvantage. Excuse me, I'm sorry. All right. So kind of running into a problem with timing here. So I'll have to guess it a little bit. All right. So if we go back to the share screen again. Sorry, folks. So at the time that I actually pulled this video up, Rahu was in the first house. So there is some discussion about dissatisfaction or discontent. There's a Venus-Jupiter opposition. We've been waiting for that for quite a while. Venus is in the 8th house in this chart in Libra, and Jupiter's in the 2nd house in Aries, aspected by Saturn. Saturn's in its own sign, Venus is in its own sign, Mars is in its own sign, and today Moon is in its own sign. So that's actually a relatively rare combination. K2's in a favorable sign. Sun is in a somewhat favorable sign. Mercury's in the sign of an enemy, technically. And let's see now, what else we have? Rahu's in a neutral sign. Okay, so Virgo and Rahu are technically neutral. And neutral just means they're ambivalent about the sign's disposition. So Rahu, as I said last time, Rahu tends to create situations in which disruption occurs. So Rahu going into Pisces will tend to cause a dissolutional pattern. And what I mean by dissolutional pattern is that it will cause problems with people feeling solidarity, or people feeling a measure of cohesion. Okay, so that's been going on for a few years, but it's being acted out right now. So you're actually seeing some people getting more violent. And I seem to recall there was a Paris fire recently. There were fires in London, England, or riots or outbreaks in London, England recently. And Canada, I can't recall, but I do recall Canada declined to fund aid to Ukraine. Ukraine is essentially, the narrative that's being given now is that Ukraine actually won because they weren't completely taken over by Russia, when Russia's original goals were really just to address that particular part of the country. And I'm not in favor of Russia invading Ukraine. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm just saying that essentially they did what they set out to do, which I find fascinating, that the Allied countries are treating that like it's a victory somehow, that Russia didn't take over Ukraine. And that was never the intent that was never the stated intent of Russia. The other thing is, you have Rahu in the first house. It can lead to some confusion about policy. Jupiter in Aries can give some concerns about the economy. Again, a little bit of overenthusiasm from this combination. Venus is in Libra. That kind of fuels that enthusiastic take. Moon is in Ashlesha Nakshatra, which is a very ambitious nakshatra. So essentially, whenever you have Moon in Ashlesha Nakshatra, there is a lot of cleverness involved, certainly, but also the potential for doing whatever one can do to get ahead. And I think we saw that essentially. We had a debate between Newsom and DeSantis this past week. There's, I would say, an open understanding that if Joe Biden declines to run in 2024, Gavin Newsom will certainly announce for the position. So again, whether or not he will, I don't know, but that's what all the pundits seem to say. And we have a Mars Saturn mutual aspect in the chart. So that Moon in Ashlesha tends to give that underscoring of political opportunism. Mars and Saturn essentially will stop anything from happening until it's absolutely perfect. And I think one of the other things we have in this particular chart is Rahu will involve lies around ideology, lies around judgment. Saturn is still aspecting Jupiter until May. So you're going to see a lot of court issues. Speaker Johnson in the United States has indicated he has enough evidence to go ahead with an impeachment, or he has enough votes to authorize an impeachment inquiry. I don't know whether or not he's going to do that, but he says he has enough votes. So, as in previous weeks, Saturn is kind of dominating this chart, but Mars is also dominating it as well, because Mars is aspecting the fourth house, and it's influencing Saturn. But Saturn's also aspecting the second house. Saturn's also aspecting the sun and Mars. And let's see now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Jupiter's aspecting Mercury, which is actually a good thing. So I think one of the things you can see from this is there will be an effort for people to get a fair and honest view of what's going on. Venus as a planet really dislikes untruthfulness. The Venus-Jupiter aspect kind of like amps that up a bit. And I think one of the other things we're seeing, there's a large debate around the world about the Israel-Palestine, Israel and Hamas. And I think one of the things that's happened is certain groups which have historically been allies against one another, which I find fascinating. So Jupiter's the tradition, and Venus is quote unquote the right thing. So they're in opposition. So there's a common misunderstanding about Jupiter and Venus, I think, in terms of astrology. Jupiter is what we would call wisdom. Okay. So it's the knowledge gained of wisdom and tradition. Venus is knowledge gained through experience and, to a certain extent, measurement. Okay. So whenever you have these two operating across from each other, there'll be a conflict between what the traditional thing to do is and what the right thing to do is, even if it goes against tradition. So this doesn't mean that Venus is a better planet than Jupiter is, but Venus will take the side of whoever it thinks is in the right, even if it's a negative force like Rahu and Ketu. And Jupiter will never side with those planets. So will control those planets. It'll say, slow down, don't do anything rash. But it won't necessarily, it's a diplomat planet. Jupiter is the diplomat of the gods. Venus is the domestic advisor. So the domestic advisor looks and says, the people are hurting internally. We have to help the people internally. Jupiter says, well, we have a broader mission to the world. We have to address that broader mission to the world. Two very different mindsets. They're both benevolent planets. They're both considered very good, but there's always this conflict between external and internal good for the people. Okay, so whenever you see that opposition, you know that's going to be a large element of the debate. Okay, and I think what happens is Venus is in Chitra Nakshatra. It's a nakshatra ruled by or under the influence of Mars. I won't say ruled by. And Mercury is also under the influence of a nakshatra called Mula, which is kind of a destructive nakshatra. So essentially, even though Jupiter is aspecting Mercury, this will lead to a dissolution of communications, because Mercury is essentially is being encouraged to oppose, is being encouraged to take doctrinal positions by Jupiter, but also it's in a rather destructive nakshatra, to be honest. So Mula is often considered to be the nakshatra in which old beliefs are destroyed and new beliefs take root. As a matter of fact, it's called the root nakshatra for a variety of reasons. And that, so it's also rooting out negative influences. So Venus is in a warlike nakshatra. Mars is in a kind of a gathering together nakshatra to fight. And Moon is in kind of an ambitious nakshatra. So I think all these things together make it very, at least obvious to me, that we're going to be in for a lot of disruption over the next few months. That's going to continue really for a while. The Mercury nakshatra placement won't last long, but around December 15th, Mercury goes retrograde, and that will cause some additional problems. So again, keep your head up and be alert. What you're hearing on news is not really news, but it's a perspective that you're hearing from different people as opposed to actual news. I want to see if I can get a timer. Hold on a second. All right. Hold on a second. My apologies. I'm just trying to get a timer up so I can know what time it's captions. Yeah. Still not seeing what I want to see, but that's okay. All right. So let me go through the 12 signs. I almost said the 7 signs. So let's go through. So you're going to see a lot more disruption around the world, even though Venus is better placed than it normally is. And I think one of the things that I always look for in these kinds of charts is whether or not there's going to be effort to compromise or calm down, and that doesn't look like that's the case anytime soon. As a matter of fact, within about a month, Venus is going to go into Scorpio, which will make it much more aggressive. So again, I wish I could give you better news than this, but again, we're going to see a lot of disruptions, a lot of changes in governments, and let me just see now. That's me. Okay, so I'm back. Sorry, folks. So we have, so let's go to Aries. First of all, Aries has Jupiter in the first house. It's the first time this has been seen in a long time. It has Venus in the opposing house, so there should be better marital relations than there normally have been over the past few months. And The moon is in the fourth house, so a lot of attention towards home life. This sign is going to want peace at home. It's going to want happiness for his children and his family. And Saturn's about to aspect the moon, so this could mean some disappointments for people over the next couple of days. But again, we're not going to worry about that much. And Mars is the Lord of the First, is in the eighth house, so there's a lot of hidden activities that Aries is involved in this month, or this over the next couple of weeks. Mercury's in the ninth, so it's good for communications, especially with siblings, for this sign. And Saturn's in the 11th, and Rahu's in the 12th. So again, some short-term gains with a lot of effort, but a lot of expenses. Rahu in the 12th. I've never liked Rahu in the 12th because it gives a lot of expenses. So let's move on to Taurus. Taurus has the Lord of the First and the Sixth, so this sign will focus a lot more on health and well-being. Moon is in the third house, a lot more focus on financial success and also on expressing oneself. Ketu's in the fifth. Children will be problematic or a little bit difficult to judge. Mars is in the seventh house along with Sun. We have two basically difficult planets in the 11th house, or in the seventh house, excuse me. And Mercury's in the eighth house. So this sign, so the relationship partner could be keeping secrets from Taurus. Saturn's in the 10th house, so career life should be good for Taurus. But again, gains are temporary and expenses are high. So expenses are still stay high. So again, this indicates that even though we may see some dampening down of inflation because Rahu is away from Saturn's aspect, it'll still continue at least for the next 4 months or so. For Gemini, Moon is in the second house. This will make this sign more attractive, more visually appealing, more popular. Ketu's in the fourth. Venus is in the fifth. Better position for this sign in terms of romantic involvements and conquering romantic problems. Mars is in the sixth house along with Sun. That's actually a relatively good placement. When you have Mars in the sixth house, it's actually good for courage and overcoming problems. Mercury's in the seventh house. Relationship partners will seem to be a little fickle or immature, and this sign will be strongly focused on relationships. Rahu's in the 10th. There'll be some career recognition, but not as much as one would like. Jupiter's in the 11th house. That's actually a good placement, so good for gains, but essentially some people will owe you money, from this placement. Cancer. For Cancer, this is July 15th through August 15th. Moon is in the first house, so the moon's in its own sign. This is actually a good placement. And so although it will make the sign a little bit moodier than normal this week, Ketu's in the third house, give it a lot more courage. Venus is in the fourth house, very good for happiness in home, happiness in relationship life, some arguments with children. The Lord of the 12th and third house is in the sixth. That's called a Viprit Raj Yoga. So that means expenses will be minimized or lessened, and so will enemies. And let's see, Saturn's in the eighth. That's the house of relationship partners. So relationship partners will be a bit difficult to deal with. Or with a relationship partner's speech, so relationship partners will seem a little bit down or difficult to deal with. Rahu is in the ninth. That's actually very good for financial gains and career gains. And this sign should get some recognition this week. For Leo, Leo has Saturn in the seventh house, as it has had and will have for months to come. So this indicates stable relationships usually. Sometimes, depending on other patterns in the birth chart, it can create relationship challenges. And this sign will be a little bit spiteful or hurtful in speech this month. Venus is in the third house, but very diplomatic, oddly enough. So I think when you're seeing this particular kind of a combination, this actually is relatively good for relationship life and diplomacy for this sign. Mercury's in the fifth, Sun and Mars are in the fourth, so a lot of focus on home life and home construction. Saturn in the seventh, we've already discussed that. So slow gains in careers, relationship partners will be a bit dissatisfied with relationship life. And Moon is in the 12th house. So again, that's not necessarily a bad placement. That will give increasing finances, financial growth to the sign. For Virgo, Virgo has Ketu in the first house now, which can make it a little bit forgetful. I'm starting to feel that myself. I have a Virgo sun. Venus is in the second house. Speech is much better. The ability to communicate is much better. The ability to make money is much better, especially aspected by the great benefic Jupiter. Mars is in the third house, will make this sign more courageous, more focused on achieving what it desires. Mercury's in the fourth house, a lot of focus on home life. And Saturn is in the sixth house, good for overcoming enemies and obstacles. A lot of research emphasis, but slow and steady from this sign. Rahu's in the seventh, relationship partners will be difficult to please. And Moon's in the 11th, good for financial gains. So this isn't a bad time. There will be some unexpected gains, but there'll be strings attached to them, for lack of a better term. So you'll get like large inflows of money, but there'll be conditions attached to them. And it won't be clean. And what I mean by it won't be clean is you'll have to address some misunderstandings or some misconceptions in order to get the financial growth you want. For Libra, Venus is in the first house. That's very good for self-assurance, for popularity for the sign. Sun and Mars are in the second house. That's a Dana yoga for this particular sign. So it's very good for money for Libra. And Jupiter's in the seventh house, still aspected by Saturn, but you will have the opportunity for new partnerships, for meeting new people. Rahu's in the sixth. There's a lot of struggle to get what you want, but you will get what you want by the end of the month or by the end of the year, okay? Saturn's in the fifth. If you're working on a project or working on some kind of activity, be slow, steady, and consistent, and you'll get a lot of gains. The Moon is in the 10th house. That's very good for career life for this particular sign. So actually not a bad week for Libra, first time in a long time. Now the nakshatra placements are a little bit tricky. So that's one thing I have to point out. The nakshatra placements or the lunar mansion placements don't go away because the signs are getting better, but you will see some noticeable improvements for signs like Cancer, Libra, Aries, and Capricorn over the next week or so. For Scorpio, Mars is in the first house in its own sign. Mercury's in the second house, good for communications. Rahu's in the fourth house. Rahu's in the fifth house. So children will seem a little bit greedy. Saturn's in the fourth house. It will seem like there's a lot of responsibility connected with home life. Moon is in the ninth house. That's generally not considered a good sign placement for the moon or a good house placement for the moon in the sign, because moon's a Bodica planet or a difficult planet for this rising sign. But one thing I will tell you is it does actually improve the person's luck with some difficulty. K2's in the 11th house, unexpected gains. Venus is in the 12th house, unexpected savings. And as a matter of fact, this is kind of a nice combination because you have benefics surrounding the first house. So a better week for Scorpio than normal. You still have Saturn aspecting the first house, which is a bit difficult, but if you soldier through and you don't get too perfectionistic, you'll do great. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has Mercury in the first, a lot of focus on relationship life, the same as with Gemini. Saturn's in the third house, a lot of courage. Jupiter's in the fifth house, slow delays in getting what you want in terms of love life, but you'll get what you want, but it'll move slowly. It'll seem like it's a lot of effort. Probably won't break through until January, but it will happen. Rahu's in the fourth house. This is a combination, so there's a lot of emotional dissatisfaction and some career blockages because K2's in the 10th. But Moon's in the 8th house. That's not bad. That actually gives relationship partners will start to soften emotionally towards you. Venus is in the 11th house, good for gains. Mars and Sun are in the 12th house. So I would say a lot of problems with supervisors or superiors, but also some potential for gains. But you do have to watch out because this is a Mars affliction placement. So there is a possibility relationship partners could be taking advantage of you. For Capricorn, I'm going to try to wrap this up kind of quickly. For Capricorn, we have, I'm having to judge by my watch because my timer isn't on the way I have it normally set. For Capricorn, we have Saturn's in the second house, Rahu's in the third, a lot of courage, Jupiter's in the fourth house, a lot of focus on home life again and on education, some barriers to education. Moon is in the seventh house. That can make relationship partner or wife more appealing or more sympathetic. And K2's in the ninth, can give some strange obstructions at work. Venus is in the 10th. This is actually good for Capricorn for a change. So that career recognition that Capricorn's been looking for and the financial gains it's been looking for with Sun and Mars in the 11th house should show through. And Mercury is in the 12th house, good communications with people in a distant land. But again, some expenditures due to career life and also because of deceit. So you have to be careful about that. For Aquarius, Saturn's in the first house, Rahu's in the second. For this particular placement, so this sign will have a lot of work. It will be dissatisfied with its money. It will seek more money, and it will feel a little bit moody or a little bit like it's surrounded by enemies. But career-wise, it'll actually do extremely well. And its luck will be extraordinarily good, and gains will be extraordinarily good for the sign. So that's a change for the sign. Finally, for Pisces, Pisces has Rahu in the first house, Jupiter in the second. That should give good financial gains to the sign, although it will still not feel like enough. Moon is in the fifth. Good luck from children, good luck from past efforts. Venus is in the 8th house, unexpected windfalls from critical relationship partners. Mars and Sun are in the ninth house. That's a good placement. That'll give bosses will give you a lot of extra work, but career life will be very, very good. And Saturn in the 12th house, again, heavy expenditure pattern. All right, so let's go to the map, the time and space map. And we'll make it a little bit bigger. So we have a Mercury line near Hawaii and near Western Canada, and a Sun and Mars line. So some possibility of earthquakes or volcanic activity close to Hawaii or close to Western Alaska. These things are never really sure things. Maybe some ocean problems or disasters. Venus is passing over and intersecting Mercury, so we'll be hearing some kind of negative news out of Western Canada. The line which is closest to the United States here is a Jupiter line, which again is going to mean a lot of discontent with elected officials, maybe some scandals connected with elected officials in that part of the country. There are no lines over Arizona, New Mexico, Montana, or any of those places. That doesn't mean nothing's going to happen there, but there's a Mars line running right through North and South Dakota, all the way down through Texas and Oklahoma and Nebraska and Kansas. So we can expect some violent outbreaks there, maybe even affecting Missouri and Louisiana. Okay, so we have a sun line running right through Louisiana and Texas as well. So I'm tending to think Arkansas may see some problems, Missouri may see some problems. And also there's another Saturn line running through the Midwest up through Michigan and in Indiana and Illinois and Kentucky, down really hitting Louisiana hard. So I think this particular line will give some bad economic news to this part of the country. There's a Mercury line heading out near where I live, near Massachusetts, and also down by Dominican Republic and Haiti, and down by Venezuela and Peru, Argentina, Chile, the entire southern. I'll be done in about 5 minutes.
Jerry,
Yes, I'll be done in about 5 minutes.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes.
I just looked at the Santander check, and it's Carol.
All right. So essentially we have some problems in South America. There's a Rahu and Venus line going through. I've seen some economic problems in South America, and there's a Jupiter line also abutting it. So definitely in Brazil, some economic problems may be hitting as far south as Uruguay. Argentina, we know, has economic problems. That's not a surprise. There is, let me just move this out of the way. There is a moon line running through Iceland, down by Cabo Verde, and through the Azores. And there's a Mars line running through, I believe it's the Madeiras or right here. And I think one of the things we're seeing Mars lines running through Ghana and all the way south, and also this large line running through Libya and a satellite running through Morocco and Portugal and Ireland again. So again, Ireland's still not out of the problems, and I think this actually reflects the attitude they've taken, that they're clamping down on things as opposed to trying to figure out what the underlying problems are. That's influencing Great Britain, and I think also France and Spain. And there's a Mercury line running through Spain. We'll be hearing more from Spain, more from Algeria, Libya, and throughout Central Africa, all the way down to Zimbabwe, I think. And over here we have a long moon line running through. It's a Rahu line running through a Rahu moon line coming together in close to Ukraine. And so you may see some disruption in this part of the world. And there's a Venus line running very close to Ukraine. And that to me symbolizes maybe the resolution of the conflict. I hope. But there'll be some stalling. And I think you're going to see Iran get a little bit bellicose, but Iran is going to have some internal problems too. So is Saudi Arabia. So are the United Arab Emirates. And finally, as we go a little bit further east, there'll be some economic downturn in India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, and hitting India from really all the way through, and Mars line, maybe even some violence off Sri Lanka, and also a sun line, so government control in Ladakh and Bangladesh and China. And finally, we go over here, we'll be hearing a lot of news about China this coming week. And also Borneo and Indonesia, and also Rahu. There's a panic in Australia right now, maybe a little bit of a panicky situation or overreaction situation in Korea and Japan, because we have Rahu lines affecting both countries, and New Guinea as well. So there are disease. Rahu can be a disease vector line. So I have heard that Australia is considering shutdowns again. And Jupiter's running up through that line as well. So that wouldn't be surprising. The last line I want to look at is Saturn's running through New Zealand, and the moon is running close to it. So there'll be some economic problems in New Zealand. Okay, so that's it for this week. I hope I didn't run over. If I did, I'll just re-record and make sure I have my clock up this time. And but again, like I said, it's always a pleasure doing these. I hope this comes out clear. This is the first time using this particular setup for me. And I love you all. Keep watching, stay optimistic. Things will get better. Things aren't really that horribly bad right now, but there are a lot of unhappy people out there. So just keep that in mind when you're out and about in the world. Just make sure that you stay out of the way of unhappy people, and you keep yourselves happy and optimistic, because there's a lot to be happy about. Okay, thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you soon. I haven't spoken about Trump or any of the trials. I'll probably speak about that next week, because I think everything's kind of suspended right now. That's just my impression. So we'll talk about that more next week. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care of yourselves and be nice to each other. I love you all.